Well, good afternoon, everyone. Michael, soothing here. But been non-stop traveling for the last 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks. Several trips to California, twice, to Portland, to Seattle. Mostly family things. Memorial for my dad. This is his hat, by the way, if I didn't mention it before. So I carry on his legacy. He was an incredibly charismatic, strong personality guy. Far more presence than I have. But I don't think he could do ASMR. He had a big booming voice. But yeah, we miss him. Anyway, today what I wanted to do, since it's Memorial Day, did I say good afternoon or good evening? It's afternoon. Memorial Day. I thought I would take a look at this magazine I got called World War II and remember some of the sacrifices made by the guys who fought in that war to prevent domination of the world by an incredibly cruel and fascist regime who wanted to basically exterminate or enslave everyone who wasn't exactly like themselves. Nowadays, people are offended by youth today are offended by someone not using the right gender pronoun. But back then, World War II, the youth went off to fight and die and sacrifice their lives to preserve the world and freedom. It was a different time. That's why the guys that fought in that time, both domestically and in foreign war, were called the greatest generation. They were the survivors of the Great Depression. Some of them worked themselves to death. By their late 20s or early 30s in steel mills or lumber or whatever. Be hard to do lumber for a living, do the forestry thing, lumberjacks. It's a tough breed. They still do that here in this area, the West Coast, Oregon, Washington. But anyway, never mind all that. I'm going to do a look down on this and peruse through it and see what kind of articles are in here. I haven't read this yet. Maybe we'll find something that's not too intense that can still be ASMR and read a story or two in here. Hold on, let me change the camera angle. All right, I'm back. Joanne came in from gardening. Let's see, he said on their recreation time they'd go on a weekend pass to London. We would go there to meet girls. We enjoyed getting away. There were a lot of buzz bombs hitting London. And then the V2s, those were the rocket-propelled bombs. So that wasn't any fun. Let's see, so there was a place called Dorothy's or something. We'd go there to dance with the girls and we'd take a troop carrier back. Some guys had bicycles. When we first got there, they gave each of us in the 82nd Fighter Squadron a bicycle. Well, those crazy guys start riding those bikes like they were airplanes and trying to outdo each other. We had accidents and guys would get hurt. So the commander said, get rid of those bicycles, and they wouldn't let us have them anymore. Because fighter pilots are so competitive all the time. So no matter what they're on, they're going to compete. Tell us about your first aerial victory. In that business, they say you learn as you go. We were on an escort mission over Germany. Let's see. There's a gaggle of German planes heading for the bombers. It wasn't a formation like we were in. It looked like there were hundreds of them. Come on, Myers said. We have them cornered. I was tail end Charlie, which means I was the very last guy on the right side of the formation. I looked over, and there was an ME-109 fighter. I could see his guns flashing. He was shooting at me. I immediately called it over the radio and turned into him, circling to get on his tail at 29,000 feet. He dropped his flaps and landing gear, hoping I would overshoot him. Well, I didn't have time to even get a shot at him, so I pulled up and did a wing over to come back around, but my element leader shot him down first. About 2 weeks later, something similar happened. I was the wingman. There was a lone 109 flying fairly low to the ground, about 2,000 feet. My element leader made a pass at him, but was going so fast he overshot him and missed. By that time, I had learned you had to slow down, so I reduced speed and was able to hit him. The 109 went straight in. It wasn't really much of a fair fight. He didn't have a chance, really, but he would have done the same to me if he could. And then it goes on to say, 3 days later, you became one of the first pilots to shoot down a German Me-262 jet. That was like the first jet that made it into warfare, jet engine plane. There's a photo of the Me-262 type jet fighter. They were fast, but I think not so maneuverable. He said he hit the left engine of the jet. They were about 100 feet above the ground at that time. His plane flipped on its back and exploded. I pulled up, and then anti-aircraft guns from the airbase were opening up on me. John saw this and radioed, "Get down, you're over an airfield." So I went back down and came out real low as I could. I finally got away from the area and was able to pull up. The flak had hit my tail, so I didn't have rudder control. But you don't need that really for flying straight and level. You had initials painted on your plane over the victory markings. Whose are they? FLW was painted over the first swastika for my flight instructor. The second was for Lieutenant Bill Lacey. He was shot down in September 1944. Looks like he talks about other friends he lost in the war and another German jet he engaged. It's amazing that some of these guys are still alive, isn't it? And back then they did a lot of unhealthy stuff, smoking and, that kind of thing. So, need to know, always ready. Spy camp. It looks like this is a story about a camp in Virginia where they would send guys to train them to be spies. That might be an interesting story to read later. Men roamed the woods of Prince William Forest Park near Triangle, Virginia, with demolition charges, sidestepping booby traps on nighttime sabotage raids. The fields and streams served as a stand-in for the countryside of Germany, China, and Burma, where the men would eventually go to see real combat. These were the new recruits for the Office of Strategic Services, a new venture blazing the trail of American espionage. Campers in today's Prince William Forest Park have Spartan accommodations that evoke the site's wartime amenities. I guess you can still go there and learn about the history of that training camp. Know the enemy. A friendly fire incident in Sicily provided America a costly lesson on perfecting airborne operations. It says here in the footnote, U.S. anti-aircraft fire raked the night sky over Italy. On July 11th, 1943, similar fire from ships and shore in Sicily killed dozens of Americans. They were confused about a flight, I guess, of U.S. aircraft, thinking they were German aircraft, and shot a bunch of them down. It says, in an instant disaster struck. Tracers lit the sky. Anti-aircraft shells rocked the low-flying transports, so those weren't even attack aircraft. They were transporting troops. I won't go into they were paratroopers. They were anticipating a relatively problem-free flight as they moved in to reinforce another unit that had jumped the night before. Communications mix-ups can be deadly. In wartime, I believe that we lost something like 23,000 men just in the training mission for the Normandy invasion because they didn't realize they were going to sink with all that heavy gear and drown when they were doing the training for it. And strangely, the same thing happened. They didn't quite learn from it because a lot of the guys had the same fate when they landed at the beaches of Normandy. Paratroopers jump over Sicily. Anti-aircraft fire pelted the C-47s. Stop, you bastards, stop. A war correspondent screamed at the men firing at the planes. Stop shooting. Yeah, they were even shooting at the paratroopers. After they came out, the forces on the ground thought they were the enemy. Very tragic. There's General Patton and General Eisenhower. They called him Ike in the war, and he eventually became President of the United States. Patton was a very controversial figure. You might want to watch the movie if you want to learn some U.S. history of what he did in the war, because he was a very tough, no-nonsense, also very egotistical, and perhaps a little bit narcissistic guy who accomplished huge things in the war effort, but he would always say things that got him into trouble. Who does he remind me of? I don't know. Lucky for him, there was no Twitter back then, right? But anyway, yeah, he's still good. He would lose his command for a time for doing things like famously slapping a soldier who had become coward and was in the Red Cross field hospital, and Patton was going around to all the injured men, giving them encouragement and medals and congratulations. And when he came to this soldier and said, "Why are you here?" the soldier said, "I just can't take it, sir, my nerves." Patton slapped him upside the head, knocked his helmet off, and said, "Get to the front, you coward," something along those lines. And I believe that soldier did do that. But anyway, Patton got serious reprimands and repercussions. Let's see here. What are they talking about? Patton fumed and fretted. He saw the previous night's episode as an unavoidable incident of combat and believed he had taken every possible precaution to protect the airborne troops. It looks like it was the ground forces of Patton who made that error. But they learned some serious lessons from the issue and made some policy changes to make sure an error like that would not ever reoccur. And apparently other situations came up later where they could have had a disaster but didn't, since they took proper precautions. It takes a thief. A former ABC News correspondent details how an international criminal helped bring a Nazi fugitive to justice and expose an American wrongdoing. Klaus Barbie. This looks like another interesting story I'm going to have to read, maybe later today. I've heard of Klaus Barbie, an SS Obersturmführer, equivalent to a first lieutenant, best remembered as the Butcher of Lyon. He was hiding from justice in Bolivia after the war when he met an international jewel thief, Bobby Wilson, at left with Barbie, and he confided in him. The international jewel thief turned him in, it would appear. Under the alias Klaus Altman, Barbie, with a bodyguard, had established a new life in Bolivia, where he allowed Wilson to record some revealing conversations. Maybe his ego got to him in the end, right? This looks like a fascinating story. I'm going to have to read about it, but it's long, so we can't read the whole story on our ASMR video. Besides which, we're kind of focusing more on the heroes of the war who gave their lives over there, since it's Memorial Day. Vichi's Last Stand. Vichy was the guy who took over a collaborating French government as the slave, basically, of Germany, Nazi Germany. So Vichy France they were like basically traitors to their country and traitors to Western democracy. And I guess he holed up in this big this big stronghold castle place. France's collaborationist Fiji government retreated en masse to a dramatic cliffside stronghold in Sigmaringen, Germany in 1944, as the Third Reich's fortunes on the Western Front crumbled. It was down there close to the border of France. But we won't read about him right now, because he should go down in history as someone who was disgrace to his country. We have some of those now. Somebody came, a ghost. A ghost has come. We're talking about World War II because, you know, the Philippines, yeah, it's Memorial Day, and the Philippines was a real key part of the war effort.
Really?
Yes, did you study the history when you were in school?
Yeah.
She said she did, but she forgot some of it. But not everything. We'll talk about it sometime. War artists would document what happened at the front if they didn't have cameras, and show what was happening in various towns and cities, as we see here. Jailbird, Soviet PE tactical bomber. I don't know why it was called Jailbird. I've always been fascinated by aircraft, so I'll have to read about this one because I know most of the aircraft from that era, but I don't really know the Petlakov PE-2 tactical bomber. Looks a little like a P-38 or something. But anyway, we'll study that later. Full steam ahead. Wartime railroaders confronted a tenacious enemy in the wilds of Alaska and Yukon territories. 50 degrees below zero. I think they were training for like the brutal winters of Russia. I think she's gonna eat, what's she gonna eat there? Omelette. I think she had shrimp omelette yesterday. So Joanne's been growing many things in the yard. We had, oh, I have to do a video for you. No crinkling over there. It's too loud on my video. She's eating paleo bars because she has to cut down on sugar. So do I, because we're experiencing the ill effects of pre-diabetes. But anyway, it shows how that I've been to these places, Whitehorse in Canada, the Yukon territory. It's beautiful country, but in the winter it's brutal. And so they did training there and stuff for the tough northern European winters that they had to fight in. There's an engine with a giant snowblower thing on the front to clear a path. Follow the leader, the liberator. It says here, this is a TV show or something, played by Bradley James, rallies a group of disparate soldiers against the Nazis in Netflix's series, The Liberator. I might check that out on Netflix. Based on best-selling author Alex Kershaw's book, A new Netflix series transforms the World War II non-fiction saga, so it's true-to-life stories, into a live-action graphic adaptation by blending footage of real human performances with computer-generated imagery. I don't like CGI usually. It's never realistic looking to me. It always looks so fake. But maybe I'll still check it out since they're blending it with actual films, perhaps it's better than what I'm used to seeing. Even the most advanced supercomputer CGI always looks cartoonish to me. The movement is never natural. Animals and things. But anyway, like Avatar, yeah. I know a lot of you probably love that film, but it just doesn't cut it for me. It's alright if you think of it as like a cartoon, an animated production. Then you can watch it on that basis, but it never looks realistic to me. That's why I like some of the older films where they actually had to put 1,000 guys on it. Please don't do that now. That's way loud here on my thing. I'm telling her to stop crinkling over there. She might faint from lack of... See, the problem is your blood sugar can get really low too. Because she's been out in the yard working for a few hours, watering and weeding. Oh yes, they can. You guys can hear it, can't you? I can see it making huge spikes on the audio because it picks up that stuff really loud. Half-Told Tale. The Rise of the GI. This is a book review. The forgotten story of how America forged. Show them what it looks like. Oh, I bought her this yesterday because she likes white chocolate, but she can't really eat it because of the sugar. This is what she's eating. What does it have, babe? What's in it? Don't stop crinkling. Let's see what it has. It has chia seeds, almonds, shredded coconut, pumpkin seeds, coconut oil, Brazil nuts, pumpkin seed protein, cinnamon, sea salt, vanilla extract. Good ingredients, healthy. She wants me to take a little bite of it, so I'll try it. For something so healthy, it's not too bad. It's not bad at all. This book is how we built the army in pre-World War II. From a paltry 200,000 soldiers to 1.5 million in just over a year and 3 months. If we hadn't done this, we would not have been able to prevail in World War II. And a lot of us would never have come to be, because we would be part of the inferior, caste. How can man die better? Pardon me, Kentaro says, but don't equate terrorists with kamikaze. Some people would say they were terrorists, but I wouldn't agree with that, because terrorists target innocent civilians, whereas the kamikaze were targeting military. If you thought you heard kissing sounds a minute ago, Just pretend you didn't. Anyway, kamikaze targeted military targets, so you couldn't really call them. Today in history, the Empire State Building officially opens. That was in 1931. It was an Art Deco masterpiece. I got to go there when I was a kid in New York and ride up the elevators to the top. Oh, she brought me my other hat back. Oh, she figured out that if you get it wet, it will keep your head cool. That's what it's designed for. It's called an Aussie chiller. Open range. We altered this photo of a self-propelled artillery vehicle and crew to create one inaccuracy. What is it? Well, I'd have to study that at length, wouldn't I? Alright, she's going back outside, but so we won't be set with all these sounds. But now we're at the end of our magazine, so it doesn't help me much. You just can't keep your Filipina wife from making lots of noise, can you? Anyway, I feel really... How many guys did we lose in this fiasco? You know, and they deserve to be remembered as just as heroically as the guys that were fighting, because they were on a very dangerous paratrooping mission and lost their lives trying to help win the war. Let's see if it says here what kind of casualty we had on this. They were going to attack the Italian mainland. You know, Italy was part of the Axis war powers that we were fighting against. It was the Mussolini fascist regime, but most of the Italians were really happy to see him go. The Italians themselves didn't really want Mussolini, so you can't really blame them. And I think a lot of the Germans didn't like the Nazi regime either. So, yeah, and then Japan was the other one that became the imperialist war power, trying to take over the entire Asian theater. Let's see. Patton had ordered the 504th to jump this paratrooper division to reinforce the beachhead. The mission was named Operation McCall in honor of Private John McCall, a 22-year-old paratrooper who had been killed in North Africa. At 8:39, a coded message gave the 405th the green light. McCall tonight wear white pajamas. White signified the drop zone. So Patton radioed the ground and naval units. Take every necessary precaution to prevent firing of any description on low-flying planes which are to arrive over your area between the hours of 2300 and 030. They will be transporting the second increment of the 82nd Airborne Division. So Patton took big precautions here. I wonder what happened. Where was the communication breakdown? But getting the word out to all units was easier said than done. Decoding a radio message took time. Many radios had been damaged during the landings, and communication centers were backed up. Ground units were actively engaged in combat, and beginning at 6:35 a.m., the vessels offshore had their hands full, fighting off air attacks. I see. Yeah, so all of this was going on, and they couldn't get the messages decoded and properly deployed in time. They were also dodging falling bombs. If gunners on the ships and ground had been jittery before, they were now even more on edge. The first C-47s reached Sicily's coast about 10:30 p.m., ahead of schedule. They flew 35 miles over American-held territory and dropped their paratroopers without incident. The groups that followed met a different reception, as Army and Navy gunners mistook the C-47s for German bombers. A lone gun opened up, and immediately, as though from a prearranged signal, ships and guns on shore fired a devastating torrent of anti-aircraft fire. The men watched in horror as the whole coastline burst into flames, one pilot recalled. It looked like fireworks on the 4th of July, as tracers and shells exploded in the air. The paratroopers felt like trapped rats, watching our own troops throwing everything they had at us. Without armor or self-sealing fuel tanks, flying at 1,000 feet or below, the C-47s were extremely vulnerable. Like clumsy whales, they wheeled and attempted to get beyond the flag. Let's get down to the bottom line and see. The destroyer USS Beatty fired its 20mm guns at a downed C-47 before realizing its mistake and rescuing the survivors. Let's see here. One plane returned to its base with more than 1,000 holes in it. Several pilots reported being chased by friendly fire for 30 miles after they left Sicilian airspace. Some got to Tunisia. The next day revealed the disaster's full magnitude. 23 planes had been lost. 37 were heavily damaged. The 504th had suffered 81 dead, 132 wounded, and 16 missing. The toll for pilots and crewmen from the 52nd Troop Carrier Wing was 7 dead. Let's see. And then it said General Eisenhower conferred with Patton on how to do the lessons learned, today's buzzword of choice. All right, everybody, this is a very long video, so I'm going to wrap it up now. Until next time. I know I always tell you I'll be able to make more videos than before, but then for the last 4 weeks it's been non-stop travel. Now I think I have a more available schedule throughout this summer. Travel for us is over for now, so I'll be able to make more videos more regularly. I have some of your requests, and I will try to fulfill some of those requests as well. Take care, everyone. Remember the fallen heroes of before, from Vietnam and World War I, World War II, the Korean War, so-called forgotten war, and those who fought in the Gulf, and all those who gave their lives for freedom, democracy, and the USA's future. Take care, everyone. Don't ASMR and drive. Bye-bye.